Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes.
Given the opportunity of a guillotine, they haven't listed it.
The Greens oppose this amendment.
You should be absolutely ashamed of yourselves today.
I believe the ayes have it.
While tensions in Australia over what is happening in Gaza and Israel have grown these past 9 months, the Albanese government has been at pains to say that it wanted to protect social cohesion. But on this last day of parliamentary sittings before the long winter break, it was a day of wrath and angst outside and inside the building. Gaza wasn't the only point of protest today, but it has gradually come to dominate everything in Parliament House.
How is it that Senator Payman had the courage to cross the floor and vote to immediately recognise Palestine, but no Labour member in this place has the guts to do that?
I desperately want to see the people of Gaza be able to rebuild their lives in dignity and in peace, to be able to move freely, to have freedom of speech, to be able to have a future for their children. I desperately want to be able to see my family and my friends in Israel live within safe and secure borders.
The actions of one rookie Labor senator have dominated events in politics this week, stealing all the headlines that were supposed to be about the government's July 1 cost of living measures and promoting stories of government division. But Fatima Payman's actions have only highlighted a growing wider discord in the Parliament.
I think what it does demonstrate is that the Prime Minister, if he's in a minority government in the next term of Parliament, it will include the Greens, it'll include the Green Teals, it'll include Muslim candidates from Western Sydney. It will be a disaster.
The division bells calling senators to vote rang repeatedly today over motions ranging from anti-Semitism to sanctions against Israel. In the House of Representatives, the government was trying to get legislation introduced and debated, but the conflict in the Middle East also made its way there too.
This House reaffirms Israel's inherent right to self-defence, whether attacked by Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran or any other sponsor of terrorism.
While debate on Andrew Hastie's motion was closed down, there had been a passionate debate in the House yesterday afternoon when the government moved a motion on Palestine.
I move that this House endorses the government's position to support the recognition of the State of Palestine as part of a peace process and in support of a two-state solution and a just and enduring peace.
The wording of the motion was identical to that put forward by Labor last week as an amendment to the Greens motion on which Senator Payman crossed the floor. In the Senate, the government's amendment had been defeated. In the House, it produced a passionate debate.
We on this side of the House support the idea of a two-state solution, a state of Israel and a state of Palestine living side by side. But the question is the timing and the preconditions that need to exist before a Palestinian state should be recognised by Australia.
We are not actually achieving anything in terms of the difference it will make to the people in the conflict right now. All it does is actually tear our community even further apart.
Just as community and political tensions have grown over events in the Middle East, so it seems have tensions between Australia and Israel. It emerged today that the Israeli ambassador had been called in last month to be warned, amid increasing tensions with Hezbollah, that Israel could not count on Australia's support if it went to war in southern Lebanon. But for Fatima Payman, the government of which she has been a member since 2022 has simply not moved fast enough. And she says its position is now badly out of line with the community.
Sadly, I do not believe our principles align with those of the leadership of the Labor Party. With a heavy heart but a clear conscience, I announce my resignation from the Australian Labor Party.
The picture Senator Payman painted this afternoon was of a politician who had gradually become disillusioned with the government's position on Gaza, but who had not considered crossing the floor to vote with another party until the Greens put forward a motion on recognition of Palestine. Senator Payman says she had spoken regularly on the issue until she felt her avenues of influence were exhausted.
You cannot acknowledge a two-state solution where one of those two states are not recognised, and this needs to happen in order to continue putting pressure on Israel to cease its onslaught and the massacres that it's committing in Gaza and detaining innocent Palestinians in the West Bank.
Senator Payman said that while she had met with a Muslim group in Sydney considering running independent candidates, she was not aligned with them and talked down any suggestion she may eventually form a political party of her own.
Can you elaborate, Senator, on what the suggestion that you're being guided by God in your decision-making? And will you campaign on sort of other Islamic Muslim type of issues?
I don't know how to respond to that question without feeling offended or insulted, that just because I'm a visibly Muslim woman that I would only care about Muslim issues. This topic on Palestinian recognition, but Palestinian liberation, is a matter that has impacted everyone with a conscience. It is a matter that's not just a Jewish versus Muslim issue. This is a matter about humanity.
Senator Payman did not say whether she would be voting from the crossbench on Labor lines on issues other than Palestine, and notably specifically identified other issues on which she sounds more aligned to the Greens than the government.
From incarceration rates of Indigenous people to locking up kids as young as 10 years old, from the rising cost of living pressures to families living in cars and tents due to the housing crisis, from struggling to put food on the table and pay the bills to the climate crisis.
The government goes into the winter break with everyone but the government controlling the agenda. It looks damaged. The Prime Minister will use the winter break for a reset, with what still seems likely to be a limited frontbench reshuffle. But it feels like the Middle East conflict has snapped something in federal politics, which it may prove difficult to repair.
I think it's really important that we do everything we can to take the temperature down here. It's not about denying anyone their right to have their say. People should have their say. But that can be done in a respectful way, which contributes to the national debate without doing anything to disrespect other Australians, to put people in danger and to give rise to social disunity.
Katy Gallagher is the Minister for Finance and Women and the Manager of Government Business in the Senate, and until 2 p.m. this afternoon, a Labor colleague of Senator Payman's. The West Australian Senator, Fatima Payman, quit this afternoon saying members of the government had intimidated her as she considered her future. Senator Gallagher, welcome to 7:30.
Thanks for having me on, Sarah.
When did you last speak to or contact Senator Payman?
I reached out to her this afternoon. I could see that she was a bit upset in the chamber, so I reached out and wanted to make sure she was taking care of herself. I've tried to be in contact regularly with her. I can understand, this is a really difficult situation. I want to make sure that she felt that there was people that she could talk through and talk to.
That sounds different from the circumstances that she is describing. She said she's felt, over past days, she's felt intimidated. Have you or your colleagues intimidated her?
I don't believe so. I know that many people have reached out, and I've read her comments about her perceptions of that, but I think there's been a genuine attempt to make sure that if she wanted to talk to people, she could. In a sense, I think the fact that she removed herself really from contact with her colleagues had worried us. And so we had been reaching out. Now, she has a version of events of that differ from mine, but certainly the people I've spoken to, it's been out of genuine care, but also wanting to know what decision she was making, because I think people wanted to talk to her about whether there was an opportunity to change her mind.
Do you believe that it's possible that even without intending to, that her Senate colleagues and her other colleagues in the party have, in a sense, heavied her, because that's how she is describing it?
I don't think so. I've seen no evidence of it, and certainly, she hasn't been in the chamber for the last couple of days, but certainly in the last 7 days, or last sitting week and the first couple of days of this week, everyone was sitting with her and people were trying to reach out. But I understand this is a lonely business sometimes, particularly when you're feeling that you want to isolate yourself or you are isolated. So I understand it's her version may differ from ours, but I certainly feel we've done everything we can to make sure she feels supported.
She also described the sympathy that you're saying that she was given as pseudo-empathy, not genuine.
Well, I totally don't agree with that. I think we've learned a lot over the last few years about the need to make sure we're looking after our colleagues. This is a very difficult environment to work in, and we want to make sure that the workplace culture is, the best it can be. So I completely don't agree with that.
Did she reply to any of the messages that you sent to her?
To a couple, but not in the last few days.
Now, Senator Payman says she has very strong support amongst the rank and file, particularly amongst her community in WA. Should she test that support by quitting the seat and running as an independent at the next election?
Well, my understanding, she probably has about 4 years as a senator to go on her term. She was elected as a Labor senator. Only she can really answer that. No one, she is an elected senator.
For sure, it's her decision, but would that be the right thing to do when she says she is relying on very strong support from the people that sent her to Canberra?
Well, in the Labor Party, we rely on all of us working together. That's from the rank and file members right the way through the caucus to implement Labor policies for working people in this country. We've actually passed 28 bills this week whilst all this has been going on, and we've been focused on passing the budget with all those tax cuts and energy bill relief. That's what people want. And so, if it was me, I wouldn't stay in the Parliament. I would feel that an obligation to the Labor Party.
So she should, the right thing to do, the correct thing to do is for her to quit that seat and run?
I think these are individual decisions. I'm not going to tell her what to do. She exercises her decision.
Clearly you think it's the wrong decision.
From my own moral and conscience, if I'm elected as a Labor Party senator, I would find it impossible to sit in the chamber as anything else.
Let's understand a little better how we got to this point, because Senator Payman said that she raised her concerns about the government's policy towards Gaza and the recognition of a Palestinian state multiple times, including in caucus committee. She goes so far as to say that she felt she had exhausted all her attempts to raise her concerns. Is that how it happened?
Well, I certainly know she'd been engaging with a number of ministers on this, as many of her caucus colleagues have. I mean, this is, as everyone in the community understands, nobody wants to see war in the Middle East. Everyone wants the war to end. MPs and senators under enormous pressure, as the community can see. We've had offices firebombed. We're seeing kind of politics at a level we haven't seen in this country.
This is a very important question, because it goes to the decision that she's making now, because the case that she has presented is that she had run out of ways of trying to get her voice heard in the party, essentially. Is it correct that she raised these concerns in caucus committee? So we know she spoke to the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and the Foreign Minister, but did she raise these issues to the point of exhaustion in caucus committees or via other means in caucus?
Not that I'm aware of, certainly not in the meetings that I've attended, and I know many of her colleagues have. It's been an issue that has been talked about, as you would expect, in the government for months and months. I'm not aware of her raising it directly or opposing positions that were being put.
So are you dissatisfied with the way that she then has handled her views? We don't doubt the sincerity. This is not a question about the sincerity of her views, but the way she handled the communication of those views to senior members of the party.
I think it's been frustrating. I don't think there's, I'm not going to pretend it isn't frustrating, because I think people have been aware of her views, as we have been. And I guess all of us in the government have very strong views on this, and so she's not on her own on that. We have a lot of discussion about it. I think the way, I think in some sense this has been carefully thought through. That's how it looks to me.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I think by her own admission, she said that she's, spent some time talking to political strategists about what it looks like being an independent senator, and that happened before these sitting weeks. So I think there has been a fair bit of thought put into her decision here and the way she's rolled that decision out.
But wouldn't you expect that on such an important moral question that someone would take advice from wherever they can get it? Does that actually undermine the case that she's making?
Well, I think it shows that, some of those comments where she said that she made her mind up on the floor, when by her own admission she's talking with an independent, political strategist about how to be an independent senator sometime before that. That's just a matter of fact.
So what does that tell you about what she was actually doing during that period of time?
Well, I think she's carefully thought this through, and people may say that's fine, and, it probably is, other than I think her colleagues deserved the opportunity to talk with her about that some more and support her. And when you look at the difference, the actual policy difference is not very great at all. In a sense, the argument was over recognising Palestine or recognising Palestine as part of a two-state solution.
I think the argument that she is making is one of urgency. Clearly, a number of countries in the world have decided to make that decision to recognise Palestine ahead of the resolution of the issues over a two-state solution. But let me put that to you with a question, if I may. Is the government's insistence on a two-state solution as the outcome incompatible with someone who holds the views that Senator Payman holds?
No, I don't believe so, and I think in some of the interviews in the last couple of days, she's indicated that she supports the State of Israel, the right of Israel to exist. The only way that we're going to get peace in the Middle East is through a two-state solution, and I think Senator Payman has accepted that. So when we look at the substance, the policy substance, and the fact that under Penny Wong's leadership, we have made quite a significant advance in our own position as a government and as a country in recognising Palestine, including at votes with the United Nations, I think shows just how seriously we're taking this. So, yes, I think people wanted the opportunity to talk further with her about that, and we weren't able to.
Senator, thank you very much indeed for coming in this evening.
Thank you.